Ladies and gentlemen, it is Fantasy Football Weekly here on Fantasy in Frames. Tonight, we'll be talking the free agency frenzy, the only frenzy in the fantasy football space. Don't look at any other fantasy football video calling it a frenzy. We had it first. Don't ask us why. We had it first.
We'll sue your ass too. So
exactly. Our team of lawyers back here. We've got them ready on retainer to sue anybody who tries to go against us. But tonight, we'll be going through free agency in the NFL. The good, the bad, the ugly, the A.J. Dillon. Every single thing. We'll be going at it. Let's get the music. It's Fantasy Football Weekly. Of course, you know Keith Fleming. Of course, you know Jorge Edwards. What's up, gentlemen? How we doing?
I have been patiently waiting this entire calendar year to hear another epic Keith Fleming rant. Ever since the Jalen Carter rant from the NFL Draft live stream we had last year, nothing has topped it. He says he has a rant for us this week. The second Keith Fleming says he has a rant for you, strap in, folks. It's about to be a good one.
I got a lot of opinions I want to get out of my chest, and you people are going to have to listen to it. Kevin, I want to give you credit. I immediately thought Paul Heyman when you said ladies and gentlemen to start this episode. I was like, oh, shit.
He's ladies and gentlemen.
Brock Lesnar. So, made my night.
Love it. Love it. By the way, new Hall of Famer, Paul Heyman, by the way.
Well deserved. He could be a Hall of Famer as a booker, a manager. I mean, promote. Like, there's so many ways. It's really well deserved.
Well, I guess kind of promoter. I mean, don't look at the end at ECW, but I mean, not the Hall of Famer of paying your talent on your roster, but sure,
for sure.
But yeah, so we'll be definitely diving into free agency. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel, go ahead, click that like, click that subscribe button. Of course, we will be on all podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it. So go ahead, subscribe there, get that notification when we upload a new video, upload a new podcast, everything, of course, fantasyinframes.com as well. So, gentlemen,
yes, sir.
Lot going on the last few days, huh? We talked about a little bit of, maybe the Jonnu Smith was kind of the little crack in the dam of free agency, but now we have the entire ocean enveloping us with free agency goodness. And we might as well start with the quarterbacks here. We'll go with Keith's. We might as well. I mean, we're talking Kirk Cousins. It's in his headline. Cousins and Pitts in London. Oh my! We'll just go with you. Your initial thoughts with Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's maybe the worst kept secret with Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, but still, now that we have it in ink, your thoughts here.
I mean, again, full discretion. I was pounding the drum that we should get Justin Fields. So this was not necessarily what I wanted. That doesn't mean I don't love it. I compared it the other night to if you're in a relationship with someone that's just really shitty and then you break up, the next person just has to be slightly better and you feel like they're Prince Charming, because that's been the last 2 years for the Atlanta Falcons. We have not had a winning season since 2017. So to all the people saying we overpaid for Cousins, he's coming off the injury, his age. He doesn't ever beat winning teams, his playoff record. Okay, all that stuff's fair. He's way better than the last 2 years where it was, not only forget that we weren't that great on the field, it was just awful to watch as fans. I mean, it was literally like pulling teeth every week. And you know how it is as a fan, you're going to watch the shit anyway. So the other big thing that I think really makes sense about this is Kyle Pitts is now in year 4 of his rookie deal. Drake London is in year 3 of his rookie deal. It kind of drove me crazy that we did that with 3 straight selections, but we need to find out if these guys are any good before they become free agents, or my worst nightmare is going to come true that say Pitts leaves before we know what he is and then becomes like this supernova. Same thing for London. And no matter what you say, Cousins is a good QB. I have a little bit of concern about us protecting him. I don't think our offensive line is as strong as everybody is saying in pass protection. But, I mean, this is going to be great for fantasy. Don't forget that not only are we getting Kirk Cousins in an offense he's very familiar with, because Kevin O'Connell, also from the McVay coaching tree, Zach Robinson, obviously from the McVay coaching tree, but we're going to sling it a ton, which is great for Pitts. It's great for London. The Falcons were 26th and 27th in pass attempts the last 2 years. The Vikings the last 2 years were 6th and 3rd with Kirk Cousins. So big time upside for both Pitts and London. And I really think the real winner is Bijan, because Cousins has proven he's not afraid to throw to running backs, and just obviously having more of a passing game is going to open it up and give Bijan more running room. And I think Zach Robinson, no offense to Arthur Smith, is going to get more creative with the way he uses them.
You know, Keith, looking back on the Falcons and how they ended up last year, their pass blocking and run blocking stats weren't exactly horrible, both finishing in the top 10 in terms of rankings over a PFF. You mentioned Bijan being the primary beneficiary here. I think you're right. For me, though, I think it's Drake London. If I had to say the primary beneficiary, I think this guy has been on the cusp of, stardom and being on the cusp of breaking out. And you look at all the quarterbacks he's had to play with over his time since being drafted by the Falcons. Just, you look at all those quarterbacks, you go check out the percentage of on target versus off target throws. It is embarrassing that you see that. This is not even XFL, and I'm not shitting on the XFL. I love the XFL. This is like 10 layers below that, like the Canadian Football League. Just kidding, Chris Battistel,
he's going to be used in the slot too, which he was really good at that in college. And for whatever reason, he averaged about 14% of his snaps in the slot with Arthur Smith. And literally, that was where he was by far most effective in college. We know him being the number one receiver, seeing the way Justin Jefferson's used, Cooper Kupp, etc. They line up in the slot a good bit. And London, to me, is a great guy to line up in the slot because he's too big for, like corner, like especially a nickel corner. And then if you try to put a linebacker or a smaller, like say safety on him, he's so big, he'll be able to kind of out physical them. So that's a win-win. And the other thing I do want to say about the offensive line, though, you were right. And I keep getting told that, but we threw it 27th most times in the league.
Sure.
And we also had two very mobile QBs, which Kirk Cousins is not. And the interior of the line is not great. And that's why I really hope we shore that up in this draft, because there's 3 really good interior linemen that will probably go in the first 2 rounds.
I do like the fact that, with Bijan and Kirk Cousins coming off of the injury, how much they'll rely on the running game to kind of like ease Kirk Cousins back into things and then kind of see Kirk kind of take off as the season progresses, as he gets more.
And we have Algier too. So to your point,
right.
like we can run with both of those guys.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I had to go back into my brain waves, and I'm like, Zach Robinson, where have I heard him? And then realized he was the one throwing passes to Des Bryant and very early on Justin Blackman, Kendall Wright over at Oklahoma State. So I'm like, my NCAA dynasty brain got like the best of me with like thinking, where the hell have I heard that name before? But now it makes sense. Now in the Sean McVay tree, look, the Falcons were had the second highest rush rate, raw rush rate 2 years ago, had the second highest last year, lowest pass rate over expected last year. That should come down in a major way this year with Kirk Cousins. Now you had Darnell Mooney to Pitts in London, Bijan.
Rondale Moore now today as well.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, now I know how to feel about Rondale Moore for the fact that he got traded straight up for Desmond Ridder. So adjust your boards accordingly. That's all I'm going to say about Rondale Moore as a guy who has pounded the drum and traded for a lot of Rondale Moore in my time as a dynasty manager. No more. I am going down with that ship apparently. So, but I do like this for the Falcons as far as maybe running not a leather helmet style offense.
Exactly.
Maybe joining us in this century, which is going to be nice. I don't think they're going to be, jumping into like the Chiefs, Bengals stratosphere as far as pass rate or expected, but expect them to be like above average, I would say, with this makeup of their offense. It's very encouraging. And now you don't have to rely on just pure volume. What were we talking about with Bijan Robinson last year? Well, he's going to get 300 carries, and maybe we expected too much of him. We were having to draft him at like 104, 105, 106. Now you've got Kirk Cousins. You've got a capable, group of quarterback and pass catchers. Now you don't have to rely on pure volume. You can rely on Bijan's efficiency now in the run game, which I think is going to bode well for him going forward. So definitely like this all around for the Falcons. Would not surprise me if they are hosting a playoff game in the non-Chick-fil-A, not on a Sunday, Mercedes-Benz.
From your lips to God's ears. So that's all I'm going to say.
Like, do people actually go there during the week, Keith, to go get Chick-fil-A?
No. It's literally just, and what's even crazier, you can't get it on Sunday, so it's basically just like Thursday games. So I've never understood that whole deal. I guess it was a deal that Arthur made with, the Truitt family, but it's pretty confusing because it's not like you can just go get in the Georgia Dome. Now there is other events there that obviously the Chick-fil-A is open for.
Right, like they have high school football and stuff like that too.
Tons of concerts, like all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
The monster truck show's coming, which I actually am thinking about going.
Sunday. Well, not on Sunday. I was going to say Sunday. We can't do that. Man. All right. Well, we talked about Kirk Cousins, and there's really not a lot to talk about other than maybe a couple of the low-end quarterbacks. Sam Darnold of the Vikings, Gardner Minshew of the Raiders. Both could have quarterbacks incoming in the draft, or potentially if one of them wins the Justin Fields sweepstakes here. So do either of those guys for you have staying power, Darnold or Minshew? I would probably lean toward Minshew because I do feel like the Vikings are certainly more positioned to grab a quarterback. The JJ McCarthy has everybody talking about that landing spot. But what do you guys think? It's Minshew for me.
I agree. My bigger just question is, how the hell do you have Justin Jefferson, the best receiver of his generation? He has said publicly, part of me being here long term is Kirk Cousins being my quarterback. I can understand you selling like Kurt left free agency. We tried to get him. It is what it is. But your answer is we're going to bring in Sam Darnold, who DJ Moore had his worst numbers ever. And DJ Moore's a really good wide receiver with Sam Darnold. That's very concerning. And I do agree there's some upside with Minshew and Devontae Adams. If Minshew ends up being the starter, we saw with Pittman, Minshew will pepper his number one receiver with targets. So that could be like Devontae Adams could have a record number of targets if, say, Minshew starts a majority of the games this year. And he's already had plenty of seasons with mega target numbers.
Yeah, I'm with you right there, guys. Minshew mania heading to the Las Vegas Strip. Watch out, everybody. It's going to take everybody by storm. I don't know. I don't know how much stock, though, I'll put into Minshew. Kevin, you brought it up, the J.J. McCarthy thing, them being in a position to move up and get one of these quarterbacks if so choose. What really gets me with the Vikings is they didn't really do a lot in free agency, I feel, to kind of help take the pressure off of Sam Darnold coming in as the new quarterback there. They signed Aaron Jones the day after the Packers let him go. But what is Aaron Jones really? Is he at every down back now in the NFL for every single game in the season? I don't think so. He can't handle the for whatever it's worth. He can't handle the every down usage anymore and every game usage, which is unfortunate. So they're not really doing themselves any favors to take the pressure of Sam Darnold. So yeah, it's going to be a long season if they don't make a trade for like a Justin Fields or move up in the draft and get a rookie quarterback here. It's going to be a long season for Minnesota.
Lions and Packers are winners here because that's potentially two easy wins for two teams I think are going to be pretty good next year.
I will say the Vikings, and I'm not a defensive genius by any means, but they did all their free agency stuff on defense, which is sorely needed. Tell me, give me Joe Flacco in Minnesota, and that's a market upgrade from Sam Darnold.
Why wouldn't you go get Jameis? Honestly, I would rather have Winston than Darnold.
Yeah,
everybody would, apparently, except for the Browns.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't make a move for Flacco. I was surprised him going to Indianapolis. in free agency to take over Minshew's role as the
Good
starting
spot
quarterback.
for Flacco, though. We saw
It's great for him.
No chance that Rich to maybe hurt week 3. So
again, right, exactly. Great spot there, but it is befuddling that what is Minnesota doing at the quarterback position, and let's face it, who's to say Justin Jefferson doesn't sit out sometime and throws a tantrum and just wants to, and I say tantrum, that's probably the poor way of phrasing it, but finding a way to sit out of these games and just not really participate at all. This could be a very dramatic offseason for the Minnesota Vikings.
I said last night, I think that Justin Jefferson gets traded this year for a huge draft haul from some team.
Look, we saw it a couple, with Tyreek Hill. We saw it with AJ Brown. Like, these guys were untouchable until they weren't. So I would not be surprised if Justin Jefferson ends up getting traded somewhere with this. I can't see him go. I can't see week 1 and he's lining up off the line of scrimmage, looking over at Sam Darnold, under center.
Like, you just underthrew me by 15 yards, dude. What the fuck?
Right. And who's to say that a team doesn't come up and if they really want JJ McCarthy, trade up over the Vikings and then they're screwed.
Like, aren't the Broncos and them are in front of them, or are the Vikings in front of the Broncos and the Raiders? I know Broncos Raiders are 12-13. I keep getting it mixed up where the Vikings are.
I'll tell you right now. Because let's see, Vikings are 11, so Broncos behind them at 12, Raiders 13.
So literally, McCarthy is not getting past 11.
12, like that's it. Just seems putting your eggs in that basket, and then your contingency is Sam Darnold. Like,
right,
cool. Good luck with that.
Exactly.
But let's shift over to running back because that's where we've seen the most action in free agency, and this is. I can't remember a free agent period like this where so many, at least capable running backs. I don't want to say good running backs. I will say capable running backs. As the running back averse gentleman of the trio here, you're looking at guys like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. The list goes on and on about all these running backs. Joe Mixon, I guess, if you want to, as a notorious anti-Joe Mixon guy, but I digress. Who do you think landed in the most advantageous spot for fantasy production out of all these running backs? Jorge, I will let you have first on the floor.
Not spoiler. This is not going to be some deep, heavy analysis here, but Derrick Henry going to Baltimore. How do you not immediately think this is one of the top landing spots, right up there with Saquon Barkley to the Eagles? But speaking on Derrick Henry, you for years we've been wanting. Somebody to take the pressure off Lamar Jackson, not having to have all these designed runs, not having the need to go make those plays, or feeling like the pressure is on him to go make these plays with his legs. He does not have to worry about that at all. We look at Gus Edwards. I think Gus Edwards had 13 touchdowns last year. Can you imagine what Derrick Henry is going to score now that he has this opportunity at this backfield, pretty much all to himself? No disrespect to Keaton Mitchell or Justice Hill. But yeah, this is Derrick Henry's backfield. And if anything, after what happened with Kansas City in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure Baltimore is going to realize, hey, let's keep utilizing our running backs the entire game, not just in the first half.
Yeah, my boy Monken fucked that one up really bad. He was a great coordinator, play caller all year, and that was one of the worst game plans I've ever seen in a major matchup like that.
Yeah, I would have to go with Derrick Henry as well. I mean, right now, Keaton Mitchell's looking like he'll be back in the second half of the season, I think, at the most optimistic timeline. Justice Hill, we've seen him,
good compliment for Henry, though, right? Like, I think that works together with the speedy little pass catching back and then Henry being kind of the hammer.
Exactly. He's like a guy that he kind of eats up, snaps and routes and stuff like that. But ultimately, I mean, you're not bringing in Derrick Henry unless you plan on just plowing the field with all these offensive linemen. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore doesn't find a way to at least get another pass catcher in there. They did just release Odell Beckham as well. So right now they're staring down potential bust Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. Obviously they have Mark Andrews, and hopefully they use more of Isaiah Likely.
There you go.
That's what we want.
That's my guy.
Well, there's also reports coming out today that the Ravens are trying to negotiate a trade for Deebo Samuel. Obviously we'll find out what that
Now
Whether that's
that would be
smoking,
nasty.
right? We'll
Holy
find out if that's smoke or
smokes.
mirrors, but it's out there in the ether.
Try to get. I was my kind of preferred guy who it wouldn't cost a lot. I don't think. Get DeAndre Hopkins if you can. That would be the guy where if you're going to go.
Well, I said the Titans are kind of rebuilding. I mean, like you could probably.
I mean, they only gave $90 billion to Calvin Ridley. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I forgot about that part too.
Was that real, by the way? Did you all see that the posting on Twitter where somebody tweeted at him that was too much money, and then he replied,
"No, it was just right."
It was just right. Yeah. It was just the right amount.
Yeah, it's a total bet on yourself move right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess I'm the only person that is not all in on Derrick Henry. The only concern I have for him for fantasy, honestly, is that I could see Baltimore trying to limit his snaps in the regular season and basically then unleash him in the playoffs when they need him. With Lamar's issue, this young team, we've seen Derrick Henry carry, less talented teams to playoff wins. But there's two guys that are basically a tie for me. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. I think Jacobs is one of the best backs in the NFL. We saw it 2 years ago. I think last year he was really upset at the Raiders, and they didn't do him any favors with the quarterback situation. And I don't want to say that he kind of quit on him, but I think he was also like, look, you're not going to, invest in me. Why am I going to kill myself to keep playing? Where the year before he would play through all these injuries and stuff. But the guy is Saquon. I mean, Barkley to the Eagles was really shocking to me because, this is the guy that was the heart and soul of, granted, really bad Giants teams, but it's really shocking to see somebody then go to your most bitter rival. And I just look at DeAndre Swift, not as good of a running back as Barkley in this offense, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, nowhere near as good of a running back in this offense, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. Now, Tyler on the Dynasty Show the other night made a very good point that Philadelphia historically has not thrown the ball to running backs a lot, and that is Barkley's, probably best feature. That's fair, but I don't think you make that move without, basically highlighting that part of his game, deciding we're going to throw it to him more. The other thing is, it was shocking to me last year that Philly kind of went away from the read option. It's really why the offense to me struggled. They didn't run it nearly as much, and you saw it. Like once defenses realized, okay, they're not going to do that anymore, it got really tough for them to move the ball. I think they're going to go back to doing that this year, and Barkley with Hurts running the read option is, to me, terrifying, especially when you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside.
So I have a question for you guys, and I guess Kevin.
I guess.
Yeah, I
guess you can answer, Kevin.
I guess.
Yeah, if I'm up to it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Being the running back whisperer over here. And I know we just segued off of quarterbacks here, but what do you think this addition of Barkley does for Jalen Hurts here? Do we see him take more of a pocket presence here in this offense, or is he going to be still getting that tush push and giving fantasy managers, epic performances week in and week out?
Like they're going to have to come out guns blazing because the way they played at the end of the season, like the Eagles looked like one of the worst teams in football. So now you add Saquon Barkley to this passing game, and you got to figure out something as far as getting into a rhythm and keeping that going the whole season. Because if you don't, you're going to be in the same exact spot. You're going to run out of gas by week 13, 14, and then do the same exact thing. Like
and
I think
it looked like Steichen, right, was the main reason that offense was so great because he leaves and then they struggle.
Right. And now you put in, was it Kellen Moore, right?
Mm-hmm.
As OC. Yep. So see how that goes. But I do like it as far as now I don't think you have to go to the Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott as much as you needed to in previous years. Now that you have a guy that can at least be pretty good. So.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Are you telling me I can't now count on my random but not so random stretch of Boston Scott touchdowns going forward?
Well, they do play the Giants.
They're playing the Giants. Yeah, I was going to say playing Giants. Sure you can.
But aside from those two, maybe not. Better hope they don't play in week 18.
Don't you think Barkley's also he's a real, from Joe Matt's a Giants fan. He's telling me that Barkley's a real professional, an adult in the room, somebody who leads by example. They need that with Hurts, Smith, and Brown. I don't know what was going on with them, but it wasn't right. Like, I didn't like the body language and just the looks those guys were, having down the stretch. And I'm hoping maybe Barkley can be that, veteran presence to kind of get like, look, we're really talented. Let's get this train back on track.
They need something to galvanize them for sure. I mean, if Barkley can't do it, then your window is shutting by the day.
Yeah, because you're going to pay Hurts,
Yep.
Right?
Again.
Yeah, exactly. And now let's talk about, I don't know, it's with Josh Jacobs. I did want to kind of chime in with that. I as a Packer fan, I'm not the biggest fan of Josh. Like, I look at Josh Jacobs and I'm wondering, okay, so you're going to be eating $12 million dead money with Aaron Jones, and then you go and you're basically swapping those two out, because Jacobs cap hit this year is $12.5 million, and then they have, I think they could void it the next like 3 years. It's not really a true 4-year, $48 million deal, but I mean, the optics looks that way, but in contract ease, that's what the thing is. But look, 3 years of 4 yards per carry or lower for Josh Jacobs. The last 3 seasons, 11th out of 52 qualified running backs in rush over expectation. In his 2022, his great season, 22nd. Last year, 39th out of 49, 3.5 yards per carry. I don't think he's going to be able to carry the volume that he did in Las Vegas with, I want to say, and now they have AJ Dillon. So I don't even know how to feel about that, because you got Thunder and Thunder right now in Green Bay, unless you want to throw Emmanuel Wilson in there too.
I like Taylor too. Did y'all keep Taylor? I actually liked him last year.
I think he's still kind of hanging out in the practice squad. They've been shuffling him back and forth, from the last part of the last season they claimed him again from the Patriots, who picked him off of their practice squad, and then obviously played a little bit in the playoffs. But yeah, it's a weird situation, and I will go into a little bit of that with toward the end of the show, with maybe not quite a rant on Keith's level, but maybe a mini rant about AJ Dillon.
But don't you think? And I think the one thing we always forget in all these situations is it depends the environment you're in, who you got around you. This is by far the best group Josh Jacobs has had around him. This is by far the best group that Saquon Barkley's had around him. Like, he's got a better quarterback, better receiver. Same thing for Jacobs. And I'm somebody that I'm a huge LaFleur fan. I think that he's so underrated. And what I loved was there was those rumors, and Kevin, you can account to this more than I can being a fan, that they weren't able to really run the LaFleur offense because Aaron Rodgers didn't like it. And I love that the minute Rodgers was gone, the offense changed a little bit. It was real freaking good. And they got 4 young receivers. Like, I think if anybody can figure out a way to get the most out of Jacobs, it's LaFleur. And I think they got him kind of to be that workhorse, because, I mean, I was a big AJ Dillon fan coming into, I was high on him, and he has been horrible in the pros, like nothing like I expected.
Yeah, he's 250 pounds and runs like a 180 pounder and goes down.
He's Eddie Lacy 2.0, but didn't have the good year.
Pretty much. He's like
without the cheeseburgers.
No, he's like a grilled ham and cheese. He's not quite cheeseburger yet, but no. Let's talk about some of these wide receivers. So we were thinking, wide receiver, there's a few big prizes, and one of them just got paid the other day. That's Calvin Ridley, $92 million. We're talking about Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. We talked about them last week, where those guys got franchise tagged, essentially taking them off the market. T. Higgins asked for a trade. We have yet to see any kind of finality with that. So does Ridley's addition with DeAndre Hopkins, Tony Pollard, Chikakonkwo, do anything for that offensive environment with new head coach Brian Callahan? Keith, where do you stand with the Titans? Because I still think it's to be determined. It's intriguing to see them, go out and get at least wide receiver talent, considering at the end of last year it was Chris Moore and I don't even
Westbrook. What's his name? I can't.
Nick Westbrook. Yeah, well, Nick Westbrook and Keeney was our generation's Alan Lazard, but
right.
But it was just so bad as far as like a barren.
I like Phillips, who I think he got hurt last year, right? The kid from UCLA, like he was actually pretty good. Yeah. It's all about Levis, right? Like if Levis ends up being pretty good, I like what this team has done. Like I think their 1-2 punch at running back is going to be sneaky, really good, because I think that they, I'm big on Tajay Spears. I'll go ahead and say that. But I think that they signed Pollard, and people are so worried about Spears. I think they want Pollard to be in the Pollard role he was in Dallas behind Elliott, because he was really freaking good at that. Like when he was not the feature back, getting, try to more make it like 10 to 15 touches per game, really for both backs. And then, I mean, again, Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, if Levis is pretty good, those are two very, I mean, I wouldn't say like great at this point, but quality wide receivers. And I'm a huge guy on Okonkwo. I was really disappointed. I thought, after, I guess now 2 years ago, last year, I thought he was going to be a breakout guy, and they just really didn't look his way at all. I hope they get back to it, because he's got real speed. He is a big guy. It's just, I mean, it's like everything else. If Will Levis, is just above average, I think their offense could be pretty good. If Will Levis is kind of what I thought he was going to be in the NFL, it's not really going to matter.
Yeah, I have some concerns with this running game and how, if there was a clear, decisive way these running backs are going to be used that favored their strengths. Yes, I agree with you. Will Levis has the best opportunity that he will have because of the balanced nature of this offense. But to go into Tony Pollard and what you said as far as using how they did in Dallas, well, you have Brian Callahan, heir to the Callahan Auto Industry Park in Sandusky, Ohio.
I can take a dump in a box of market guaranteed. I will. I've got the spare time.
Well done.
He's coming over from Cincinnati. He stated that he wants to bring that style of offense over from Cincinnati. And Cincinnati last year, for the beginning part of the season, they were very much under center zone running team. And then all of a sudden the philosophy switched to being more of a shotgun gap running team. And when you look at success rates versus zone versus gap, Tony Pollard ranked as the RB49 in gap runs, which is not great.
Yeah, but Tajay Spears to me is going to be the future one. I think that sets up well for him.
You're getting ahead of me, so hold on.
Oh,
sorry. Now versus zone, he was the RB4 in success rate. So the real question here is, who's going to be the lead back? Is it going to be Tajay Spears? And Tajay Spears was, I believe, the RB7 or RB8 in explosive runs of 15 yards or more on the season last year, which is crazy. I mean, it's kind of unheard of. To see somebody have that type of efficiency with such little opportunity is just funny. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what's going on here. But if Tony Pollard is going to be the lead back, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's like the Talladega Nights. Well, if you're Tony Pollard, how can I be Tony Pollard? Like that's Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard in a nutshell, right there. Because the three guys that we've been pegging as the next Tony Pollard, Jaylen Warren, Tajay Spears. Those are our Tony Pollard contestants behind door number 1, 2, and 3. Now 2 and 3 are on the same team. And now we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do. And I'm going to be drafting a lot of Tajay Spears just because he's going to be cheaper in drafts than Tony Pollard. He's going to be like, I don't know if he's going to be a lot, like a few rounds, maybe 2 or 3. Like I think I could see Tony Pollard settling into like the dead zone in like the 5th round, where Tajay Spears will be like an 7th, 8th round guy at a value. Now, maybe we'll get some nice training camp nuggets here to kind of see what way they're kind of leaning. But I could see Tony Pollard at least getting 200 carries and then Tajay Spears kind of reprising that role and being like the handcuff plus, where if that dude has the role by himself, he's an RB1. He's a low end RB1. But now that you have the threat of a passing game, it's all going to hinge on Will Levis, what he's going to do. So I still think that it all hinges on Will Levis.
Did he exceed your expectations last year? Because he did mine, actually.
In game one, sure.
That's the Falcons. That doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, every other game, he kind of looked lost. But that first game, that was a Thursday night, where he was just... Or it was a Thursday night?
Sunday. It was versus us, because Hopkins caught 3 passes for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns.
That Hopkins game. Yep. Yeah, that's right. But that first game was great. And I think we all kind of got over our skis a little bit with trying to predict, all right, well, Will Levis is the greatest quarterback since, whatever. But yeah, it's all going to hinge on him. It's interesting to maybe see them, like we were talking about with the Falcons, getting rid of the leather helmets, maybe joining us in this century with, an offensive scheme with Brian Callahan. So it'll be
From
interesting to
Callahan Auto
see.
Parts.
Exactly.
We make car parts for the American working man because that's what I am and that's who I care about.
And send a card to them that send them champagne with a thing of ice. Tell them champagne's for this.
Kid truck on me, your Z.
If y'all have not seen Tommy Boy, because I know we're old, go see it. It's one of the greatest comedy movies of all time.
Oh man, that's one of my.
It
used to be on HBO all the time. When like HBO would like just play it every other movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that and Ladybugs. By the way, Jorge, that's
fat guy about,
that was in the Discord or right? in the Slack about me putting on a wig.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly what happens in our Discord. I talk about wearing a wig.
I love it.
All right. Well, we talked about we got some more wide receiver talk here because we talked about Darnell Mooney a little bit with Atlanta, but Gabe Davis. Between those two, I think it's very interesting to see with Ridley not coming back to Jacksonville. Now we've got Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, those guys there. I think Mooney, just because of the offensive environment there, I think it's a lot closer between those two. If Gabe Davis is going to be a key part of this Jacksonville offense with Trevor Lawrence, do they go out and grab a wide receiver? I think that's interesting as well. So, what do you guys think about Gabe Davis and Darnell Mooney there? Keith, will go with you. I know you're going to want to talk about Mooney at least a little bit here.
I mean, Mooney is just a deal where I'm shocked that most of my fellow Falcons fans, he sucks. And I'm like, again, the salaries, people got to remember, the salary cap went up $10 million more than expected, and it's already inflated. $13 million for what's probably going to be our number 2 wide receiver is not a ton of money. It's just not. And if you look at the quarterbacks that Mooney's had throw to him in his career, he had 1,000 freaking yards with Mitch Trubisky and Andy Dalton. Okay. So he can play a little bit. But it's Gabe Davis is the guy that I'm much more excited about, because if you look at Lawrence, he has been most effective, at least from a QBR rating, et cetera, targeting the big targets in that offense, the Zay Jones, the Evan Ingram. And I think Gabe Davis just needed a change of scenery. It was just a really kind of perfect storm because he had that monster game versus Kansas City. And then I think so much expectation and pressure was put on him. And not to, mention in an offense that targets one guy who is not Gabe Davis a freaking lot. I think in Jacksonville, you see Trevor is somebody who is much more willing to spread it around. You look game to game, like it was Ridley would have the most targets, Zay Jones, Ingram, Kirk, I think he has the potential to really break out here because Lawrence, no offense to Josh Allen, I actually think is a better QB for Gabe Davis's skills. And again, he's more likely, because there's not like a Stephon Diggs target monster on the Jaguars team to take away targets from him. It's risky because Gabe Davis may just not be that guy, right? But I do like him with Trevor Lawrence. And again, Peterson is usually pretty good at, finding a way to get these receivers involved.
For redraft purposes, if I had to pick one, I agree with you. Gabe Davis would be the one. These to me scream more best ball plays for me. I can't ignore what I've seen from Gabe Davis, all the donuts he put up. And yes, you're 100% right. The hyper targeting of Stephon Diggs definitely contributed to that. Josh Allen taking the ball in his own hands and making plays definitely contributed to that. The emergence of Dalton Kincaid. I get it. Isaiah McKenzie, Khalil Shakir, exactly. But that being the case, there's a lot of unknown here. Christian Kirk, he'll be healthy by the time the season starts. He had that injury down the stretch last season. We still have Evan Ingram there, and then we also have the commitment they had to the running game with Travis Etienne. So I wonder how many players they can actually feature here consistently, week in and week out. So, like I said, he would be for me a late round flyer, but to me, he screams more of a best ball play than anything else.
I think that's a great call.
By the way, can we pour one out for Khalil Shakir? By the way, getting nuked by Curtis Samuel today. I'm
not worried about it. He was number 1 in QBR rating. Josh Allen was in the league when targeting Khalil Shakir. Like the numbers, the metrics. I know I'm a nerd. Screamed that Shakir, Allen was really good when he went to him. I understand, Samuel obviously does some of the same things, but I do think by them getting rid of Gabe Davis, he's still going to have a piece of the pie, and he already has familiarity with Josh Allen. I'm not giving up on him yet.
Does that? I mean, I can see that as maybe a sign they want to get an next receiver in the draft. That's
that
what
could
I
be
look.
true too. I think that a lot of these teams. I keep saying it. This is a draft loaded with offensive linemen. The good teams, the teams that consistently win, you watch. They're gonna just pick these guys off. I know the Niners are going to rebuild their entire offensive line this year. They have 10 draft picks. Obviously with Williams and stuff. I know it's coming. Bills are another team that they could, use to strengthen. To me, when you have these great quarterbacks, strengthen your fronts, right? Like the offensive, defensive line. You look at the Chiefs, right? Really good offensive line, really good defensive line. And you have Pat Mahomes, you're okay.
I'm shocked. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're pretty good. I mean, Mahomes is pretty good, I've heard.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shocked, and this is the IDP side of me, the IDP fantasy football side coming at me, the defensive-minded person coming out here. You renegotiate Von Miller's contract, an aging veteran whose best years are probably behind him, and you let Leonard Floyd go
That was crazy.
to San Francisco. Why are you dismantling this defensive line? To have an aging guy? It just doesn't make sense to me. And they're not doing themselves any favor on the defensive side of the ball. They let go of Jordan Poyer. They let go of Micah Hyde. Taylor Rapp's now, not Taylor Rapp. Oh my God, it's his name is escaping me. The point is that you let go of these veterans on the defensive side of the ball who are helping keep the Bills in games. It's not doing Josh Allen any favors. I'll tell you that.
Jets might win that division. Bills and Dolphins, to me, have gotten weaker in the last year. And if Rodgers is healthy with what the Jets have around him, I think the Jets are a sneaky pick to win the division.
So you mentioned the Dolphins. Have either of you watched the in-season Hard Knocks of Miami Dolphins this year?
Not all of them. I've seen some
I've seen clips. Yeah.
Knowing what eventually happened to that team in terms of the utter decimation on defense.
Yep.
And you just see these players and their lives and you just form a connection with them. It is probably the most heartbreaking football thing I've ever watched to see this team just get utterly hosed. It was
Baltimore's going, we've been doing this for years. So cry me a river.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the Jets have a good shot if, Rodgers isn't on the campaign trail.
That's true. He might be the vice president of the United States. I don't know how that's going to work, for the playoff stretch. So we'll see.
Good friggin' Lord with that.
Yeah, he'll somehow find a way to do both and excel at both. And then it's more of a reason to not like him.
What an egomaniac. Really, you're quarterback getting paid a ton of money. You said you went to New York to help the Jets win a Super Bowl.
Get rid of the distractions, guys. Let's get rid of them all.
Thank you. It's like he should immediately put something out going, I am not considering running for vice president with fucking the worst Kennedy in the history of mankind. There's already a lot of bad Kennedys out there. But no, he's an egomaniac, so he loves this shit.
Yeah, he should run under Mr. Kennedy's ticket.
Yeah.
Mr. Kennedy.
That was, by the way,
right.
Ken Anderson, say what you want, but his WW, that entrance, that whole presentation.
Completely agree.
So good. And from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Hello.
Is he? How about that?
So we talked about, some guys that have free agent destinations, some guys that don't right now. Marquise Brown still unsigned as of literally right now.
That's kind of shocking, right? I don't understand that.
Is it? I mean, how good is Marquise Brown really?
I think with what some of these receivers are getting, maybe he's asking for too much money and that's the deal. But with what some of these guys are getting paid, I am shocked. If he's asking for significantly more than Darnell Mooney, obviously, I don't get it, but I would rather have Marquise Brown than Darnell Mooney.
Or would you rather have Mike Williams? Because Chargers releasing him. Now he's kind of in that bucket too. I mean, I'm sorry. Mike Williams on the Chiefs just makes too much sense.
That's literally what I put in the notes. Especially if he will take a 1 year, maybe a little bit of a discount. I mean, you play with Mahomes, you'd have to think if he stays healthy, he's going to get a pretty good contract the next year, right? Because his numbers are going to be better. And I'm with you. He is just – that would be terrifying because that's what the Chiefs have really missed since Tyreek's left is they don't have that Even Rashee Rice is not really a home run guy. Mike Williams is.
Right. And he can run down the sideline and do a triple gainer and land on his head and pop back up and
You mentioned the Ravens too. Would he work with the Ravens too or no?
Yeah.
Go back.
Absolutely. I mean, they got a bunch of smaller guys. I mean, Bateman's 6 foot. I mean, they can use a bigger body there too.
Oh,
yeah.
Marty, I was wrong about Rashad Bateman.
I'm going to say something that's very controversial. That by the way, the 208 of you that are watching live consistently on all our social media channels, thank you very much for joining. This number probably is going to get cut in half when I say this, but depending on the situation, I'm actually kind of excited to see where Hunter Renfrow lands. I want to see the slot utilization again. A team like the Washington Commanders, who could use a slot.
John, are you saying that's official, or are you just saying that you agree with us?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing, John? Which, by the way, thank you.
Hey, the Commanders don't need a slot receiver. They just signed Jamison Crowder yesterday.
He's a special teamer, and that's all he's going to be. He's a long-term Commanders player, rather, and fan, I guess. But I just feel like there's an upgrade there that needs to be made, and Renfrow would be very cheap for them.
Yeah. And I was going to say, because I did kind of get off the beaten path with Gabe Davis. By the way, Jamison Crowder, the best 4th round pick as far as wide receivers, as far as fantasy points scored. The best 4th round wide receiver is Jamison Crowder. And next is, I think Gabe Davis is in the top 5. And that just shows you why teams get these wide receivers on day 1 and day 2. Because the hit rate on a lot of these guys are so low. I mean, Darnell Mooney is a success, case, and he was a 5th rounder. So, I mean, that's why teams go up and get wide receivers in bunches in the first 2 days, because the hit rate on a lot of these guys is so low. Jamison Crowder is the bar you got to try to reach. That's saying something.
It's getting to where obviously it's QB, the line, like the tackles, the edge rusher. I would argue now wide receiver is like the 4th most important position, because if you look, I mean, except for Patrick Mahomes, which he's an alien, and he has Kelsey and Rashee Rice kind of, came out this year. But you look at these really good offenses and teams, they almost all have a stud wide receiver, like a legit, alpha.
Yeah, Green Bay's trying to buck that trend. That's right true, now.
But they might have 4 mini alphas, which I kind of like.
Right, this league is predicated on corners, edges, bookend tackles, quarterbacks, and wide receivers.
Yep.
Agreed.
Let's look at, tight end kind of getting a little bit slept on. Not a lot of movement there because Dalton Schultz did kind of resign with the Houston Texans. Hunter Henry did come back to the Patriots. So right now we're looking at, if we want to dig our, if we want to roll up our sleeves and get into the muck here, we're looking at Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki to the Bengals, Irv Smith to the Chiefs, Noah Fant re-signing with the Seahawks, Zach Ertz to the Commanders. Look at that treasure trove of tight end 20 through 25 right here. I mean, you look at these guys. Does anything pop out at you as far as maybe guys you want to take flyers on late, in either very late in redraft or as your tight end 2, tight end 3 in best ball?
We know where Jorge's going, so let me just go ahead and I'll get out of the way. Jonnu Smith with the Dolphins to me is really interesting. I know a lot of people hate on Jonnu Smith, including Falcons fans like myself, because we're throwing it to Jonnu Smith as Kyle Pitts is blocking, something he didn't even do in college. But he is a good tight end, and I think he will be a really good fit in the McDaniel system because he's really good after the catch, which is something that they're going to, I mean, if you look, that's kind of the issue with Gesicki and what was the other kid, Smythe or Smith. They'd have a lot of 4 catches for 25 yards, to where I think Jonnu Smith can take some of those small catches, break a few tackles, and I love it, 25s. That to me is the one that's most, I'm not falling for the Irv Smith again. I'm just not. I've been on Irv Smith, I think now 2 or 3 years in a row.
And he's still 23 years old.
I know, but I'm done with it. I'm just done. I'm not doing it anymore. Really, I mean, and the biggest one, obviously, Schultz and the Texans. I think there's a chance Schultz really starts to break out because him and Stroud were so good together last year. And obviously teams are going to really zone in on Nico Collins and Tank Dell. They upgraded the run game where that's going to have to, get a little more attention from the defense. I think Dalton Schultz is a real sneaky, dynasty or redraft guy at the tight end position.
Yeah, and they brought back Noah Brown, so I'm a little
I do.
concerned with target competition with the Texans. Now we can actually say that, with a straight face about the Houston Texans, but I am a little bit concerned with that. But I mean, I would say as far as the ceiling on all these guys we mentioned, him and Hunter Henry probably had the highest. And then you're looking at that glut of the treasure trove, if you will. Jonnu Smith would be the guy for me. We know how that offense really doesn't have a lot of tertiary guys. We look at the Waddle and Hill, and they were rolling out Durham Smythe and Julian Hill last season. So, I mean, maybe Jonnu Smith goes from 165-yard touchdown to 3. I mean, hey, that's great for best ball. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I'll take
absolutely.
that all day long. But, till we get the worst kept secret, which is Jorge's answer.
Of course, someone has talk about Zach Ertz. I heard when I heard about the signing, I was a little bit sad because my Cole Turner shares in Dynasty just took a hit again 2 years in a row. Look, you go back to 2021, 112 targets with Cliff Kingsbury, 5 touchdowns. In 2022, only played 10 games before he tore his ACL. But in 10 games, he got 4 touchdowns on 69 targets. So there is precedent for, him to pepper the tight end there in that offense. But again, I think we're talking about, into the 20s or 19s, 20s for Zach Ertz just here because this guy he's not the guy that was winning a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. It's long since then. And to be perfectly fair, it's been a few years since he was in Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury, and that takes its toll as well. Not to mention,
wasn't it just 1 year though? Wasn't it 2 years ago he was with them, or am I getting it confused?
Ertz with there was a year and a half because he got traded like week 6.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry.
All right.
So you're right. Right.
So you have McLaurin, you have Dotson, you have Eckler now helping out in the receiving game. You have even Brian Robinson towards last year. He was probably one of the more efficient running backs in yards after the catch.
Maybe freaking Eckler. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, our generation's J.D. McKissick, Austin Eckler. I mean, that's basically what he is now.
That which is fine if he could still.
That's perfectly
fine. I love
him.
Robinson. Let Robinson cook. Like, he's a really good back, both in the pass game and running it. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't let him be like the guy. And with Eckler, Eckler's like, he's just with his name and everything. He's going to get a significant amount of touches, right, Jorge?
He will. At the end of the day, though, like I said last week on the show, the biggest signing for me heading into free agency was the hiring of Anthony Lynn. His familiarity with that running game, familiarity with Eckler, familiarity with just being able to coach up running backs. You look at his time with LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo, and then he went to the Chargers where he had Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. Then his time as head coach Austin Eckler. Then he went to Detroit, and Noshawn Moreno had his breakout that year, if memory serves me correctly. Not Noshawn Moreno, Kerryon Johnson, excuse me, before his knees kind of went kaput.
How dare you get Kerryon Johnson and Noshawn Moreno?
He had
good dogs.
Noshawn Moreno is somewhere crying.
Do it. No, he's doing
the tears still in his eyes.
The tears are still streaming.
Yeah, exactly. Which Superman that came out of nowhere back in the day.
Superman at home, watch me.
I'm sorry.
That's what Noshawn did. Like
dance break.
He would.
Yeah. You Soldier Boy crank it
or not? Yeah, he did.
That's awesome. And then he went to San Francisco last year. Was the running backs coach there. Now he comes to Washington. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. I think you're going to see a step up in the evolution of this running game here. But going back to Zach Ertz, there is precedent, but I'm not expecting too much.
I mean, look, this is where we're drafting guys like Evan Engram, in years past, where Logan Thomas was in this range of tight end. So just historically based, you're going to get close to top 12 tight end out of one of these guys or guys in that kind of ilk. I mean, it could be, for all we know, it could be Davis Allen. Is that the guy for the Rams? I know he signed Colby Parkinson, but good Lord. Like one of these guys, Tucker Kraft, it could be.
Right. Let me ask you guys something, because, used to it was like you take Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or you freaking wait. Now it feels like there's like 6, 7 guys and then the huge drop off. Are you like making it more of a priority to get a McBride, a Laporta, a Bowers coming in? I do think Pitts is going to get added to that with Cousins. Obviously, you got like the Kelsey, there seems to be a huge difference now, but there's more of them to where to me, it's more risky not to get one of them.
Just so much ambiguity between all of them after like the top 9 or 10 that I want to make sure that I get a guy that I'm confident that he's going to be a top 2 target on his offense or on an offense that's going to have enough. And the Falcons could be that. So, Kyle Pitts is back on the menu, baby.
It's the opposite of running back, right? Like there's a ton of guys at running back that are all kind of bunched together in the points they score, to where tight ends is getting almost like QBs, right? Like there's the top 5 or 6, and then there's a pretty significant drop, and then it's just kind of a crapshoot who's going to end up, filling out the rest of the rankings for the year.
Yep.
I feel like if you're a 0 RB guy, and speaking for Kevin here, you'd be more in line to grab that tight end earlier in your draft, that elite tight end, versus if you're not. And also, if you're not playing in a tight end premium league and you don't get one of these elite guys, then by all means, I understand that there is a tight end premium, aspect to the added points per reception, but how much is that really adding to, somebody like a Jonnu Smith or a Tucker Kraft, so it's or Gerald Everett, 2 times a year, maybe. So I don't know. For me, I normally just stream tight ends. That's just not my thing. Like I don't like to get that advantage. There's too much talent on the wide receivers to even think about sacrificing one of those for a tight end at that point.
Yeah, that's like what I'll do on like FFPC, where if I'm doing like the Fantasy Pros Championship or like the main event or something like that, if I don't get a top 7, 8 tight end, I will draft like 4 or 5 tight ends, because I want to make sure if I'm not going to get one of the top ones, I'm able to kind of Frankenstein tight end one production out of a bunch of guys. And we were able to do that last year with, you could probably get, the Dalton Schultz, David Njoku went a little bit later. You could get the Tyler Conklin. You could get all these guys, Jake Ferguson, where you could figure out tight end if you didn't get, tight end had the landmines too, because of Mark Andrews going down at the end of the season too. George Kittle was very up and down. He was very hard to start in managed leagues. But yeah,
he's one of those guys that if you have Kittle on Dynasty, you're going, I hope they trade Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, now we're looking at him going to Jacksonville
or Debo,
like the scuttlebutt right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will wrap it up soon here. But we have one more question here that we want to get into. Kind of wrap everything up, tie everything up in a little bow here. Something that really grinds our gears.
No one really grinds my gears.
Yes.
Bing, bang, bong. Love it. Something that really aggravates all of us here in the fantasy football or real football. Keith, do you want to kick us off here? Because I know
Of course I will. I'm happy to rant at any point or time. Anyone that knows me.
Jorge, we got to follow this. So, I mean,
well,
we got a tough task.
So I truly don't know if these people that are trying to knock down the talent and ceiling of Caleb Williams, if they're just trolling, they're just stupid, or they don't watch tape. But it's one of the 3, because let me start off. It's a crapshoot. Like even with the most talented guys, it's 50-50 at best. And a lot of times it has to do with the situation. So nobody's saying he's a can't miss. Nobody's a can't miss. Like at this point, I pretty much feel like no QB is a can't miss. Me and Alan were talking the other day. Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, do you think if he doesn't go to Kansas City and Andy Reid and say he went to one of these shitty teams behind a shitty offensive line, he's Patrick Mahomes today? Hell no, he's not. Like it takes a situation and talent. But from a talent perspective, Caleb Williams, unquestionably, go watch the tape, is as good as any QB to come out of the draft, maybe ever. Like, I mean, it's like seriously on that Elway, Lawrence level. The Oregon game in particular, again, Alan Sandlin, who is a good buddy of mine, he runs ESPN Richmond. radio station. We do the golf show together, but he's a really good talent evaluator. He has actually done me the favor. We've got on calls and we get on the all 22 and he will talk me through throws. And just in the Oregon game alone, Caleb Williams on a 4th and 4 flipped the ball 40 yards to a sideline pass with the cornerback draped over the receiver right into the wide receiver's hand. In the same game, there's a 3rd and 5 that he rolls to his right, never sets his feet, and gets hit as he throws. And yet again, actually the receiver dropped it, but he threw a 30-yard dime to the sideline, again, only where the wide receiver could catch it. Same thing on a 4th and 4 play from kind of that Mahomes level, right? That side angle throw that he had to change his arm angle to get the pass off. There is very QBs I've ever seen that have his combination of arm strength, where he will put the ball, and people are just nitpicking shit. Of course he's going to have some bad games, but like the crying thing is ridiculous. And just the fact that, they didn't win. And he started turning the ball over more this year. Of course he did. He knew every game he had to score 40 points to win because they had one of the worst defenses in college football. There is a huge disparity. And I actually like both Drake May and Daniels. I think they both have a chance to be good QBs. But it's Caleb Williams. And then there's a significant drop to those other guys. And that's why I thought it's insane from the get-go that the Bears would ever pass up on him when, again, they took Trubisky the year Mahomes was there. I just watched some tape before, like I've seen, there was a guy who's a former scout that said he's going to be a flat-out bust. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, just go watch the dude's film, and to have the nerve to say he's going to be I wouldn't even draft him. It's like, get the fuck out of here. You're either chasing clout or you're an idiot. Like, that's it.
I was waiting for that, Keith. Thank you.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so my rant is basically going to be, hey, everybody stop hating on the Washington Commanders signing all these excellent veterans, these culture-changing individuals. Look, these moves are not being made to win a Super Bowl. I hate to break it to you, Commanders fans, who get delusional every year that, we're just a piece away. And it's like, well, we're more than a piece away. This is about changing the regime. This is about the regime change and changing the culture, bringing in people who match Dan Quinn's passion, his energy level, people he's had experience with. Look, the Bobby Wagner signing. I was joking about this with Gary Davenport last week on Shoot the Gap. Like, he asked me, what are the Commanders going to do at linebacker? And I'm like, well, they're going to swap out one former Seahawk in Cody Barton and bring in a better Seahawk in Bobby Wagner. And it actually happened, which blew my freaking mind yesterday. You look at the additions they made on defense at the linebacker position: Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, Jamin Davis. I haven't given up hope yet, but it's not looking too good. They bring in Jeremy Chin at safety. You bring in some of these veterans on the offensive side of the ball. Dorrance Armstrong, I think, is a completely underrated defensive end edge rusher. He played for Dan Quinn in Dallas. Very efficient. When he had his opportunities, generated a lot of pressures, which is what you want. So yeah, this is about changing the culture. This is not about necessarily the football, aspect of assembling a team.
And I guess I will bookend Keith's rant with maybe a mini rant of my own.
Yes.
Look, I am an unabashed Packers fan, even though my own team's fan base hates me on
Do
Twitter.
they really?
Kind of, because I guess I go against the grain. I guess I'm not a.
You're not
like,
fanboy enough for them? Is that what
no,
it
I
is?
am not a fanboy. If I
No,
will
that's what I'm saying.
criticize,
It's like they want you to just basically everything the
toe the
Packers do is
company
great.
line
fuck that.
do all that. All right, so Green Bay has 11 picks in the 2024 draft.
Ooh.
5 in the top of 91. One they got from Rodgers. One they got from, the corner that they traded, Rasul Douglas. So now they have 5 top 91 picks. I'm not saying go out and draft a running back with any of those day 2 picks, but they also got a 5th, 6th, and 7th compensatory selections. Wow. So look, Green Bay has always done, when they are in a position of need is they draft multiple at a position. They've done it with wide receivers. They've done it with wide receivers like 5 or 6 years ago when they drafted Jamon Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Equinemius St. Brown. They did it with Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and Devontae Mays at running back. They will draft multiple of a position to make sure that they have, if we get one of these guys to hit, great. Green Bay had none of those wide receivers hit, but they had basically 2 of those running backs hit, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So you call that a success. And those are later in the draft, although Jamon Moore, I believe, was a 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick. Anyway, so my rant kind of centers around A.J. Dillon. He was signed again today by a 4th-year qualifying offer, which I guess is pretty rare in the NFL, where he will be making $1.45 million. I believe the veteran minimum is a little bit over $1 million. But my point is this. Why are we getting so into the weeds where we know exactly what A.J. Dillon is? Why are teams continually middling it with bringing back veteran players when Green Bay's MO for the last 2 seasons is get as young as we can, get all of these young players growing together, and then let them off? Jordan Love leads the charge, and look what it did with the wide receivers last year. Now, we have thunder and thunder with Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, completely uncomplimentary skill sets between those two. We have Emmanuel Wilson. We have Patrick Taylor. Cool. But we know exactly what A.J. Dillon is. He was below average last year in rush percentage over expectation. 3.5 yards per carry. Has continually disappointed every single season he has been a pro. Why not just say, all right, A.J. Dillon, thank you for your years of service. But you know what? We're going to get maybe a little younger, potentially more upside at the position. No, we're going to bring back A.J. Dillon for $1.4 million instead of taking a guy like a Blake Corum or, any of these other young running backs that could possibly give this team a spark. Josh Jacobs has 3 void years after this first year where Green Bay can say, you know what? Thank you, Josh. We're not feeling it, dog. We can do that. And then Green Bay could basically start over with a running back that they like, that they draft, and go from there. And if they don't like it, draft another one. That is what this is why you have 11 picks in your draft, is that you can go to the well with the most replaceable position in the NFL as running back. I just don't get it. I will never be an A.J. Dillon guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I know he's a friend of the fantasy community, but the mayor of Door County is not welcome at my table.
He would be more of a friend of the fantasy community if he'd score some fantasy points.
Yeah, imagine.
Can I interest you in Dejon Edwards from University of Georgia? You were talking about Thunder. He is definitely a lightning guy, really quick, great pass catcher. One of those guys that I feel almost a little bit like a mini James Cook, that he didn't get a ton of carries. That's just a Kirby Smart, the way they do things there. But I think he's a really talented back. And I think he'd be a great fit with that offense. And he'd be somebody you get late. No,
I would welcome a guy that, because if there's anybody that, find somebody that loves you as much as Matt LaFleur loves running a jet sweep motion,
Oh yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yep.
Pre-snap. I mean, they've been trying to find a guy that could consistently do that. I mean, for the love of God, they were throwing out Tyler Ervin to be that guy like 2-3 years ago. They've been looking for a guy to be able to do that. And if they can find a running back that can do that, did I get you with that, Keith?
Yeah, you made me choke. Like, literally, you got me there. For real.
Like, if they can find a guy that's versatile that can do that at the running back position, that can maybe run some routes in the passing game, that would be perfect. You think A.J. Dillon's going to do that? No. He's going to trip over an offense. He's going to trip over Sean Ryan's right leg and fall down for -2 yards.
1.5 yards in a cloud of dust.
Pretty much. You need 2 yards? I'll get you 1. You need 1 yard? I'll get you half.
I can't help. What's up, Sniper Mel? I can't help but listen to both y'all say thunder and thunder. Both y'all did. And the pro wrestling fan in me immediately thinks back to the early 90s of Thunder in Paradise, the TV show with Hulk Hogan that he did between
the terrible TV show.
It was not terrible.
Thunder.
That Barracuda speedboat that they were driving, that was like hit level Knight Rider.
I think of AC/DC Thunderstruck, which is one of my favorite songs of all time.
I probably should make that association because I was joking. Thunder in Paradise was
The
good.
Stone Cold shirt, by the way, which you just kind of didn't even really show off. Love it, buddy. Love the Austin 316.
I love all the vintage stuff. Gotta love it. Sniper Mel talking crap of AJ Dillon. Shame on you.
I will be here all week. I will be here all year. So there'll be plenty more of that. By the way, I do want to this is the one like wrestling thing that I can say. I was at the WCW Thunder at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York, where David Arquette won the WCW.
No shit.
What the fuck? Really? Wow.
You know, I was at the Dome when Goldberg defeated Hogan in front of 75,000 of my closest friends.
Oh my God.
Goldbergiacs, they were saying.
That pop, though, seriously, was freaking insane. And again, this is people wonder why WCW failed. They have Goldberg beat Hogan in the biggest money on
free
Monday Night.
TV.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? I mean, I enjoyed it, but
So were they cheering for Goldberg? Because there's a lot of toilet paper being thrown in that ring after he got the
it's just pandemonium. You got to remember, he played, for
I know,
Falcon.
the Falcons.
He was. I mean, they were going crazy for him. Yeah.
I'll never forget that Monday night. That was so good.
I'm sure my soda that I threw into that ring, I think it whizzed by.
Were you shocked? Because they didn't really set, like, I remember the match being set, but I was like, there's no way. Because this was before really you think about like the market, WWE went that period where fucking Hugh Jackman and everybody else was showing up, getting involved in matches. But I'll never
15
be like,
years
what
old.
is going on?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. This was 16. No, it was 2000. So I was 15. I didn't know what to think, honestly. Like, I had to did that really just happen? And like, I look back, I'm like, that's one of the most infamous moments in wrestling history.
Have you seen the documentary? It's fascinating.
Well, I mean, I've seen the movie, but not.
No, I'm talking about Arquette, who he really wanted to become a wrestler and change that narrative and start doing death matches and stuff. It's an unbelievable documentary. You should really check it out, and it makes you feel really bad for Arquette because he didn't want that. He's a huge wrestling fan. He knew,
it's all about the movie.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the movie, the WCW movie with Arquette, where he tries to bring the king.
He won the championship.
Right. Well, that's the Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
Ready to Rumble. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The king.
Wow. The king.
Oh my God.
We are so old. It's great.
Hey.
In a good way.
I resemble that remark.
By the way, shout out again to the 250 of you who've been watching us across all our social media platforms. You have no idea how much this means to all of us, showing your support. It tells us that you enjoy what we're talking about. And again, if you ever have any questions, just drop it in the chat. We love to engage with you all. So thank you all very much for tuning in with us.
And we went the whole episode almost without us mentioning Nate Markham, but I just did. So sorry.
That has to be a recurring gig going forward. We have to slander Nate Markham in some way.
Do the Matt Damon deal with apologies to Matt. We'll say apologies to Nate Markham. We're running out of time. We'll get you on next week.
The tape machines are rolling.
Yeah. Oh my God. Tony Schiavone. I love it.
Oh my God. Good times. I think it's time to wrap her up there. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think so. I think everybody should go back on, like Kevin, you were saying, go check out our YouTube page, subscribe there, hit that notification bell. We really appreciate your support with that. That helps grow Fantasy and Frames. So we really appreciate that. Is that Nico? Keith?
Nico is in the house. He was napping, but he's here.
Nice.
Had to wake him up just for that.
Yeah. Well, it's so crazy. I swear. I don't know if I said the same thing when I get off a show or whatever, but he knows the minute it's over because he jumps down. He's like, all right, let's go. Give me a treat.
Love it.
Yeah, so head over to there, head over to fantasyandframes.com, check out our articles, check out our rankings, show some support there. We really appreciate you all who do that. We put in a lot of hard work to make sure you get the quality fantasy football information that you deserve, as well as don't forget to go wherever you listen to podcasts, download the Fantasy and Frames podcast, listen to last night's 2 episodes, which were fantastic.
Really?
We had Keith and Tyler join host Stacey Perez, where they were talking about the Dynasty risers and fallers after free agency. Then go and listen to the other episode where we had Drew Scott and Brett Manuel have Hutchinson Brown, who is one of the stars of this fantasy football community. Young man
Put
in
us
high
all out of
school.
work, by the way.
He really is. I mean, he brought up offensive line success rate, and the guys after the show, we were talking about this. Just like, where did that even come from? That was amazing. So definitely worth downloading and checking out. Another thing I want to give a shout out to, speaking of Stacey Perez, the Fantasy and Frames Best Ball Challenge Women's Tournament. We started this in honor of Women's
My
History
wife's
Month.
in, by the way, Jorge. She is in the field.
Is she really? That's oh my god, that's so cool. Shout out to Stacey for really organizing this, putting this together. I think going forward at Fantasy and Frames, I think we're going to do each month for the rest of the year, have a best ball show or a tournament that's going to revolve around a special cause for the month. Haven't really decided April's yet, but that's going to be coming up soon. But that notwithstanding, to get Fantasy and Frames involved in this was very important. And Stacey, you get 100% of the credit here. This is fantastic. Be on the look.
46 of 48 teams, Phil. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And be on the lookout for a special live stream where Stacey's going to have a couple of the participants come on, and we're going to actually announce the divisions and the division contestants so that you all can get your names in the spotlight as you deserve.
Like the schedule release.
Like it is. It's kind of
awesome.
like the schedule.
Yeah,
exactly. It's
Bracketology.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Speaking of March Madness around the corner, really excited for that. Really excited to get more women involved in the fantasy football space, playing fantasy football, because we all love it. It's a testament again to all the hard work Stacey Perez has put in there. So if you're not following Stacey Perez, you should be. Stacey _Perez 83. Fantastic job, Stacey.
Amazing host too. Like, I was blown away. I told her I can't believe she's only been doing this for basically a year. Hosting is so freaking hard. Kevin did a wonderful job of it tonight too. But I mean, she's just as smooth. She transitions, like she runs the show like, a great point guard. I told her I really was impressed.
The old Steve Nash.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, gentlemen, it's been a fun time, but I think it's time for us to go and let everybody else get on with their evenings. But Kevin, you killed it today. Congratulations. First time hosting. Love it.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun. And, obviously I will cede the chair. Happy to be at the top left where I can espouse my aversion to anybody over the age of 27 in fantasy football.
Next time we'll throw the ones up for you and acknowledge you, Kevin.
We'll do it right now. I'll acknowledge Kevin right now.
Acknowledge me.
All right, folks. You all have a great rest of your evening. Take care.